last time we talked.
Yes. When was the last time we talked?
That's a good question. You were in London in stilettos in a storm, and you had an umbrella, and you were hiding. Remember that?
We talked since then.
Well, but that was my favorite talk, though, because
Yeah.
I was like, how you doing? It's gushing rain, it's London, I'm in stilettos, and I'm hiding under an umbrella.
I think the last time we spoke, I was trying to change trains in Brussels on my way to Ghent, yeah?
Yep, that cracked me up.
Yeah.
So I was looking at Meeco. I love this. I don't know if you're the one that said it or not. Meeco is a life management platform. Was that your quote, or did they put that in for you?
No, I tell you where that came from. Do you know Kuppinger Cole, the German analyst firms? Yeah, so Martin Kuppinger and Jörg Resch wrote a paper in 2012. And funnily enough, it was within sort of weeks of me writing our manifesto. So our manifesto starts out with, up until now, the power to capture and use personal data has really been to the benefit of social networks, governments, large institutions. What if you and I had that same power? And then our mission is to enable everyone on the planet to get equity and value from the information they share. And so...
Willingly.
Yeah, explicitly. It's like you and I part of the value chain, whether or not that's me as a citizen in the way I engage with my government, or it's a customer and I want my bank to help me to understand how my data and information helps me make better financial decisions, or it's a parent and I want to navigate digital parenting with my child, or the kind of stuff that my children are accessing online, or the way their education is shaping. I mean, let's face it, now our physical self, we have this digital doppelganger, yeah? Like we have this digital shadow of everything we do. And what I loved about the paper that Martin and Jörg wrote was this idea that in the future we'd have this life management capability. So it would be on our terms. There would be, of course, explicit consent, but we would be able to take data and information from different parts of our life and manage that in the same way that an organization has a platform to manage its discrete chain of value. We would be able to do the same thing. And, that's part of our mission, to make that happen.
And if you can't tell, you're kind of like from Australia, right?
I don't know.
It slips in and out.
Is it so obvious?
No, actually, it's
accent?
not.
Yeah?
I don't think it is.
Yeah?
Until you go, yeah? But are you splitting time between London and Australia?
I still do QF1, QF2, Sydney, London, London, Sydney, at least once a month, sometimes twice a month.
Good Lord.
At the back of the bus. I got to tell you, it's a really awful flight.
Yeah, I was going to say, good God. So what's new? What's going on with you guys?
So a couple of new things. 2 weeks ago, we published a white paper on zero knowledge proofs using distributed ledger. So when I first formed the company, it was about a year before things really started to happen around, stuff was already happening in blockchain, of course, but before Ethereum started saying, look, there's this additional layer, the smart contract layer, and the ability to transact in a different way. So we were really early followers and part of that community. We talked back in 2013 around tokenizing value for individuals, and that to build this ecosystem of trust, you and I would need to be part of the value that's created and shared, yeah? And value could be, the easy one is money, but it's time, it's access, it's loyalty. There are many forms of, you take your child to hospital and you have their medical information, you're not going to haggle over the cost of something. You're just going to want them to get the best access in that moment. Right. But then when you go to manage the insurance chain, it may be very different about the way you manage that information. So one of the things that's been a challenge for us is we've always had this idea that if I could do progressive disclosure, I could manage the cost for the institution and I could maximize the value of the information I share. But how do you do that with technology? So now we have this regulatory environment, we have GDPR, we have open banking, we have PSD2. So now I'm starting to have some legal rights of access to information or consent. We now start to see the commercial models coming through the tokenization of information. And now we need this, what we call Meeco, the API of me, the technology layer. And so
wait, say that again. I love that line.
API of me.
The API of me. Oh my God, that's good.
So
I like that.
we take the API of me and marry it together with zero knowledge proofs. So when a trusted source says, hey, I'm Sam, and you can trust, I'm Sam, I've got a bank account with this particular bank, or I hold a passport with this country, you can assert that without actually giving up all of that personal data. So you can use the API of Me together with zero knowledge proofs to progressively share information. So, my background was in financial services, so let's take something that's heavy in compliance, a lot of cost, like applying for a new home loan. So a bank probably knows, if they know 2 or 3 things about you, they know whether you're a yes, no, or a maybe, yeah? But still, you fill out all that form, all that information, you create a compliance burden for the organization, and the whole thing sucks, yeah? It's a horrible experience. When in fact they want to know, they might need to know your gender, because they might calculate that against life expectancy or something. They may want to know your age range. They want to know that you're employed and that maybe you own a home right now or you're renting, right? So there's a few data points. We call that a drive-by. Okay, now if a drive-by is interesting, the next thing we call it is a tell me more. So it's like, hey, if the drive-by is as it seems, this is someone we're likely to lend money to. But tell me more is, we want some evidence of your salary, or that you have a savings plan, or that you're permanently employed, or that you've founded like whatever it is. And different institutions will have different requirements for the tell me more. So if we have drive-by and we have tell me more, then the third thing is let's transact. And at that moment of transaction, that's when Sam becomes Sam. That's when it makes sense for the compliance requirement for the organization to be something they invest in. And you have this digital handshake to say, I'm now in this 90-something% likelihood of getting this product or service I want. Now's the time for me to give up my data and information or my identity, because there's mutual value on either side of this transaction.
So it's basically personal risk management, right? I'm not exposing myself and my information until the point where it really makes sense.
Yeah, and there's value. And the other thing is your data then, or your information or your identity, it goes way up in value because it's the very thing you need now to finalize the transaction.
I've always loved Meeco. It's just the concept of it is just cool.
Yeah. And you know what the thing is, and you've been a great support over the last couple of years, and we really value that. For a long time, I think we've been the crazy people in the room, this idea of the API of Me, but when you think about your kids, right, and how digital their lives are, at what point are they going to say to you, like, what do you mean, Dad? You used to post all this stuff out, or you didn't control it, or you didn't know who was using this information about you, or when you started a new job and you gave all this information, you didn't kind of know how the organization was using it, or the insurance company. Fast forward a few years and people will be going,
Well, and we're seeing it now, right? Because you mentioned it. You think about GDPR, you think about what's happened with Facebook and other social networks, right? Where when your data has been exposed and you go out there and you look and you go, oh my God, I didn't realize I was giving those permissions.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I think that, like you said, for my kids and future generations, just as a given. They understand that, and that's part of it. And I like what you said early on. They looked at you like you were crazy.
Yeah.
Right? And then it becomes the norm, and it's that whole cycle that you're going through.
Yeah, I think I'm still a little bit crazy, but maybe less crazy than before,
Qualified.
And look, I think this thing with Cambridge Analytica, it's not just Cambridge Analytica, right? We know there are a lot of organizations right now with their heads down going, oh my, So we know that that's really a widespread practice. And what it's surfaced is this downstream thing. And so let's say you and I were on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook, but let's say we were, and we were friends. Just because we're connected socially doesn't mean that you have the right or I have the right to determine to take your information and put it into a different context, Which really is, if we did that in the physical world, our friendship might not last so long, every time we met physically, had a coffee, I was taking something from you and then trading that without you knowing.
It's literally you going into my wallet while we're talking and picking out the parts you want. I mean, metaphorically, that's what is happening.
Exactly. And look, I think the other thing that's interesting, we didn't really talk about this back in 2012 because it didn't seem relevant. It seemed in the crazy box.
Yeah.
But just after I wrote the manifesto, we were really clear the value of data was increasing on the balance sheet of organizations. Everyone was talking about big data the new oil, blah, 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 right? And we said, but hold on a second, there has to be a legal framework for rights, right? There has to be a commercial model, otherwise there's no incentive to participate, and therefore you need the technology. So what is happening right now where we see this exponential growth? And we look to Facebook because in 2012 they did their IPO, and I sat down with our architect and we looked at the risks associated with their IPO, and there were a number of things they said to the market that would be a threat to their share price.
Right.
People realizing the value of their data. Privacy concerns. Regulation. And the move at that time, remember this was early days for them moving to mobile.
Yeah.
What would that advertising experience feel like in small form? And we took those, if you like, anchor points, and we said, okay, let's imagine a time in the future where those risks are real. There is a concern around privacy, there's a regulatory change, the business model of selling me, advertising, the friction that creates or the downstream consequences, and people start to realize the value of their data. Let's build the opposite of that, those risks. What would someone, and that was the architectural design for what is the API of me.
You actually used a phrase that I love, operating around the crazy box. That's a great way to put it. So what's the best way for folks, other than to look in the back of the plane going from London and Australia, to find you and learn more about Meeco?
All right, so a few places. You can find us on Twitter at Meeco_me. You can find me on Twitter at Katryna with a K and a Y, Dow. If you go to our website, which is meeco.me, you'll find 4 streams of interest. Overall, what does the trusted ecosystem look like? What does it mean for business? What does it mean for individuals? And what does it mean for distributed ledger?
Follow you. Follow her. Follow you. Yeah, follow yourself. Follow her and you can see someone operating just outside the crazy box. The box keeps shrinking now. Hey, thanks. It's always fun seeing you.
Thanks.
Always. And you always got the brand going. You carry your personal brand really well.
Thank you.